Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with Casey. I'm here with Noah. We're going to talk some e-commerce, some marketing, but first, we got to hear from today's show sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Reconvert, a Shopify app that will instantly help you increase your average order value. So after somebody places an order, they pay now. My order's being processed. The number one way that we have found to increase average order value is the post-purchase one-click upsell, which looks just like this. After somebody buys, you make them another offer, and if they take it, it is instantly added to their order. Best way to increase AOV.
That's true, John, but it's not perfect for every brand and every customer for every brand. So one of the other tools that not very many brands are taking advantage of right now is using this confirmation page as real estate to be pitching offers here as well. People are going to be coming back to this page quite often, checking on the status for their orders, and it's a great place to be pitching them other products. It won't be a one-click upsell, but an upsell nonetheless. Great place to get extra conversions. People might reconvert. So head on over to reconvert.io to increase your average order value today.
We're back. What's up? How's everybody doing today? Casey, my guy. How's it going? How you doing? How was your day?
My day, it's okay. Spent some time with my dogs. Always appreciate them, even though they drive me crazy about half the time.
Spending that quality family time. I get.
Yeah, oh yeah. But it's nice. It's nice. We're actually this is our second episode we're shooting today, so this is I
was trying to way to break the fourth wall, but okay.
I'm so sorry. No, I just thought it's a fun thing. It's like a very ModCom packed day, and how could you ask for a better day than that?
A lot of ModCom today. We are here with Noah, head of partnerships at Malomo. Noah, first, before we get into your background and stuff, tell me something you learned today. Did you learn something today? Ooh. It could be this week. Go with this week. I'm not trying to learn something every day. Jeez.
When Casey was saying how his day was and he mentioned the dogs, it made me think that I am cat sitting for my buddy. So I'm going over there while he's out of town to feed it. And I learned that it's not just like certain cats that I'm allergic to, apparently, like my parents. It's all cats. I'm allergic to all cats.
Yeah. Todos los gatos.
I need to that's right. I need to just accept that fact and move on from it, I think, at this point, because I have like rashes on my arms and I'm like feverishly, itching all over the place. So probably not going to cat sit anymore. But I do feel like I did a good deed and I learned something new.
I mean, you sacrificed. Yeah. You totally sacrificed for the cats. So are you allergic to like all pets, or do you have like a lot of allergies, or is it just like a cat thing?
No, that's a weird thing. I do sometimes get like really bad seasonal allergies, but other pets don't bother me at all. Gotcha. And it's weird too, because like my parents, when I go over to my parents, like 25% of the time, no issue whatsoever. But like the other 75% that makes it not going over there, makes it worth not going over there, is like absolutely awful. And there's no logic behind it. I don't even care to figure it out, to be honest with you. You just, don't go there. They can come over and visit me. I'd prefer that anyway, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this, I don't know where y'all sit on this, on the whole dogs versus cats thing. I'm not trying to offend anybody here, but I'm just saying, like, being allergic to cats, you're not missing much, man. Yeah. It's okay.
I think it's pretty safe to say we're all on team dog here. Listen, just hearing Noah is allergic to cats, I think we all are now.
By default member of team dog.
We're all allergic to cats in spirit, Noah, so don't worry about it.
I mean, cats aren't really supposed to be pets, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like, they don't really like care about you at all.
They don't love you back.
They really don't. If you shrunk, that's what I would say about cats. If you shrunk down to like their size or smaller, they would not hesitate to eat you. They do it pretty quick, actually. Like, they might not even have to be that hungry, actually.
Some cats even hunt, prey larger than themselves. Have you ever seen like 4 lions on the back of like an elephant, just kind of, or a giraffe or something?
Specifically pack cats like lions, but like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if house cats are packing up and like taking down deer or anything like that.
That just shows how mean they are. They won't even pack up with themselves. Like, nobody likes them, including themselves.
They don't even like each other.
Well, if you were worried about offending anybody, congrats, you did that. Who I cat sit for is definitely offended right now.
all the cat people are out. No, so
Oops.
here's the thing though. Do you ever like meet someone and you find out that they're like a cat, like they have like cats, and you're like, what? That happens to me all the time. I'm like, oh, you're a cat person? Like, I'm so surprised by this.
You're surprised, yeah.
Yeah, like you seem so normal before.
I
would have never known.
By the truckload right now. All the cat people.
All the cat people are gone. All right. Well, that's good. Now that we got all the normal, good.
We've alienated like half of our audience, so now we can move on with the episode. Our first topic is out of the way. We had to address that.
Let's talk about Noah. Noah, man, good to have you here. Excited to talk e-commerce in general, retention marketing, all of it. But yeah, give me your background. Give me like, I don't know, I'm throwing it at you on the spot, but give me like, could you do like the, like if they made a Netflix documentary about you, like give me the dramatic version of your background.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was like, an orphan, even if you weren't an orphan, just go ahead and say you were an orphan.
I can give you some like really like dramatic music if you want behind you.
The scratches on my neck and arm are actually not from a cat. They're from the street fight.
Yeah. Right. It's, I mean, you're not supposed to talk about Fight Club, I think, but that's all right.
Amazing.
Give me your background, man.
I love it. I love the fact that we're here. We did very little prep. We're moving on the fly. And I'm looking forward to getting you back on that when you come on our podcast.
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you guys start off your episodes with the cat riff? Just like a nice improv cat riff? We
do start the podcast with 2 or 3 things going on in your personal life. So kind of similar. So I like that. I like the opening.
Nice.
Very cool. Yeah, we find it just, you got to loosen up a little bit,
Totally. Yeah. Lets the audience really know the person a little bit better. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Nah, I hear you. Yeah, give me the background. Give me the story. The story of Noah.
The story of Noah.
I mean, you, Noah, we already know that. Yeah, the other Noah, we already know that.
I honestly couldn't tell that story outside of the ARC thing, so it's good that you're asking about me. Okay, so I graduated from college in 2015. I went to Ball State University, small state school here in
Ohio,
called Muncie, Indiana.
Close
to Ohio, very close.
No, it is Indiana. What year were you there?
Actually, before Indiana passed, like for the longest time, Indiana was one of the only states that didn't sell booze on Sundays. So we would drive to Ohio, it's like 40 minutes away, if we were going to have like a party on Sunday to stock up on.
I play basketball with a guy who played at Ball State, and he was like good.
No kidding. Who is it?
Yeah, Jawan Scaife is his name. I'm just blasting his name out there. You know who it is?
I know the name for sure.
He's probably older than you. I would bet.
Yeah. Did he grow up in Muncie? Was he a Muncie guy?
Close by, or I think. Yeah, because he had other offers. But yeah, at best he was scoring like 26 points a night. I think his junior or senior year. Like he's a good player.
Yeah, and
it's like
the name.
It's noticeable when you play with him. Like, oh, you're like a good player. Like, yeah.
I play basketball too. I'm playing tomorrow morning, and it's like so noticeable when there's like D1 athletes out there, because it's just like there's no denying what this is right now.
You shoot from way further than the rest of us, and you make them a lot more.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, Ball State. I keep derailing us. Ball State.
No, you're good, man. I love it. Ball State went there for entrepreneurship. So as part of that major, the last 2 years, you're basically just building a business in like while being in school. You obviously have like resources and you're learning classes, or the classes that you're taking are all centered on things that you would need to know to start a business, like each different function of that. And so senior year, I partnered up with who eventually became my co-founder of the company we started out of school. That company was called Safekeeping. So the premise of Safekeeping was if you guys had, let's say, a grandma in a nursing home, you would download the app and get daily updates on her health and lifestyle. So we built that business like in school, raised a little bit of money, won some money through the university. And then when we graduated, we launched it. The interesting part, and this will come full circle, is neither of us are devs. Like, we don't know anything about building technology. So we had to go outsource that to a dev shop, and we landed on a little dev shop called Sticks and Leaves. It was based in Fishers, Indiana, which is a suburb of Indianapolis. Sticks and Leaves co-founders, and I'll get to this, but the co-founders of Sticks and Leaves were also serving Shopify brands. And while they were serving those Shopify brands, they realized the problem that eventually became what they're solving with Malomo. So I've known them since 2015, and I just joined them a year ago to head partnerships for them after they're 3 years in or so to building the business that is Malomo. We can talk a lot more about that, but
nice. And is Malomo, do you guys have is it bootstrapped? Do you guys have some backing?
Yeah. So they started the company. I guess it's been a little bit longer. I think they actually founded the company in 2018. So just taking a step back, I did safekeeping for 3 years out of school. It's still running today. And I'm rooting very hard for those guys. They're raising right now. After that, I did some enterprise MarTech stuff, all in partnerships. And then, like I said, joined about a year ago, the Malomo team. During that time, after I left safekeeping and they started Malomo, I think that was around 2018. They bootstrapped, didn't raise, I think they've raised 2 rounds, but one was very small if I'm thinking about this properly. Then they raised a large seed round, like a very large seed round. Gotcha. They probably could have been considered a Series A. That was back in 2020, late 2021, I want to say, when it was final. It wasn't so big that we were in trouble because of valuation, which is really nice. We kind of raised valuations getting completely wacky, and now valuations being completely out of order for the tech companies who raised at those super high multiples. But runway is still really nice. And as we optimize everybody else for scalable profitability, we have a nice runway to help us get there without having to go raise in this market, which I think is very advantageous as well.
Yeah. So, the reason I asked is because you have a title, head of partnerships.
Yeah.
I've only ever seen exist in backed companies.
Okay, so
I don't mean that in any kind of offensive way, but I'm just saying it's there's always a head of partnerships or a VP of partnerships in venture-backed enterprise software, enterprise SaaS companies or B2B SaaS companies, and then in bootstrap ones, there's never a dude unless they're pretty far along. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. They are.
But so tell us about Malomo,
and
tell us about the role of head of partnerships, what you do there.
Yes. Okay. So Malomo is an order tracking platform purpose built for Shopify merchants. So what that means is we solve the problem of the fact that the number one cause of customer support tickets in e-commerce are, where is my order? Or how do I, my package is gone, tell me where it is. But where's my order is kind of the blanket term.
Right.
The problem that Malomo initially set out to solve was simply providing a more efficient communication process to customers. Like I said, Yao and Anthony, the founders of Malomo, were working with a bunch of Shopify merchants at their agency, while also doing cool things like helping companies like us build our app. And they sort of solved for this problem ad hoc a couple times, in weird roundabout ways. And then they realized holy shit, this is a problem for literally every single Shopify merchant, and probably even broader, every single e-commerce merchant. Because frankly, Shopify has one of the best out of the box post-purchase experiences, and it's awful.
And furthermore, I think Amazon has done this thing where you get it so quick, you know what I mean? And and not always, for sure, sometimes there's a wait, but they usually tell you when it's going to be there when you order. Or they do tell you when it's going to be there when you order, and it's dead on. The accuracy of Amazon in terms of like when this product will be at your door is, I don't think it's ever been wrong. And I've ordered a lot of stuff from Amazon. Now I'm not like paying attention. I'm not like waiting like, oh, you got it wrong, Amazon. I'm not trying to gotcha Jeff Bezos over here and then tweet at him, because I'm sure he'd retweet it. But yeah, I mean, that like it's kind of spoiled people a little bit. And I think exactly a lot of merchants have this problem because like Amazon has spoiled shoppers, online shoppers in a sense, and like nobody else has the ability to do what they can do from a logistics and shipping standpoint.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's all about their network. Their communication is always super on point. If anything ever gets delayed, the other thing that they do is they notify you that, hey, by the way, we said this was going to be 2-day shipping. The package got caught in a storm in Arkansas. Like it's going to be another 2 days. With Shopify out of the box, that's a great example, John, of like, that's something they can't do at all. Like no Shopify merchant can do that with Shopify out of the box. If they wanted to do that without like a Malomo type app, they would literally have to manually identify that issue and then manually email customers. So that is the initial problem that we set out to solve. But over time, we realized that by leveraging much better and more proactive communication throughout the entire post-purchase journey, we can also turn that into a revenue driving channel. So instead of when we send those proactive communications, sending you to UPS or FedEx, we're bringing you back to that brand site where not only are we showing you the most up-to-date information about where the package is and when it will arrive, but we're upselling you, cross-selling you. We're promoting our subscription program, our loyalty program, our UGC. We might even just use that opportunity to do some product education so that you get the most value or bang for your buck out of that item that's going to be arriving at your door in a couple of days. So the nice thing about it is it lives natively within Shopify, like in the Shopify theme. So you don't have to build it outside of Shopify and then kind of copy it or work it together into your existing system. Like it's already just living on your Shopify theme in a new page. And so every other app that you're utilizing, like a rebuy, for example, for product recommendations, you can throw on your order tracking page without having to do any sort of custom integrations or anything like that. So that's high level what we're doing. We're solving for those customer support tickets and the support team being super bogged down by those. And then on top of that, we're driving LTV through a transactional channel that's traditionally just been a cost center.
Right. So I guess, talk to me a little bit about what you see. So you guys sit across how many, I mean, I guess you don't have to tell me how many, but like ballpark, how many merchants, at the moment. There's some big ones I see, at least like on your website, like Magic Spoon and Ag, Caraway, some really big ones. I'm guessing you guys sit across a lot of merchants. What do you see as a generalized trend in e-commerce right now? Whether you want to like tie it into retention marketing, post-purchase experience, or just what you're seeing across all of these retailers, large and small, that you're working with.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is a stat that I've quoted a couple times now on webinars and whatnot. But when we were putting together a vision deck for the year, but Yao and I, our CEO, were working on this and came across this stat that said that in 2013, the average e-commerce brand lost $9 for every new customer that they acquired. So to make that customer profitable, you had to sell them more stuff. Retention was super important even then. Today in 2023, that number's risen to $29. So the average e-commerce brand is losing $29 per customer per new customer that they acquire. Sorry.
Right.
Meaning that if you don't have a plan to keep that customer, like it's not like, oh, you just like maybe lost a little bit of money on acquisition, like you're going out of business. So if you don't have a plan to keep customers coming back, like it's not just like that there's no point in acquiring them. It's that you're actually like hurting your business in potentially like a catastrophic way by not having a retention plan in place. Tying that a little bit back to Malomo, but there's a ton of other stuff we can talk about on this topic. Like 85% of customers won't return to a brand after one bad shipping experience. So if you haven't figured out how to better communicate with customers post-purchase, you're probably leaking from that bucket that's costing you $29 per customer that you just acquired. There's a lot of other things that obviously go into keeping customers and growing them, but that's obviously super top of mind for us. The other interesting thing about that 10-year time period where customer acquisition cost has risen so much is that the money that's made from repeat customers has gone up 30%. Mm-hmm. So customer acquisition costs, 3x growth, customer retention rates or customer value from repeat purchases has grown 30% during that same time period. So I just think there's this general theme of like, everybody wants to grow profitably. I said it about Malomo a couple seconds ago. And just as important, if not more, for D2C brands. You just can't do that in this day and age if you don't have a plan to keep those customers that you're spending so much to acquire.
An average of 29 is interesting. I'd be really interested in what like the sample data was on that, you know, because I think of a lot of brands that even with a great post-purchase experience just won't ever practically make up that much money in lost acquisition cost. You know, a great example would be, and they're not a D2C brand, but something like, I don't know, Yeti might like some of the podcast equipment that I use.
Sure.
Microphone or something. Like once I buy it, like I don't need another one, you know, like I bought it. There's not going to be a ton of LTV there. So yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I think there's a lot of brands like that too. You know, I've worked with like home fitness equipment or just things like that, where it's just, there's not really a lot of LTV once they buy the thing. They really kind of like, that's it. Right. And even other stuff like, you know, I work with this brand that sells these wallets, and I call these out all the time on the podcast because they're super cool brand, number one. And number two, they're a great example of a brand that there is a potential for LTV. They have other products, right? They have bags, they have like purses, they have all kinds of things. But there's not like a lot of natural LTV lift when the acquisition product was a wallet. And maybe, you know, maybe somebody buys an Apple Watch band, maybe somebody buys a phone case, maybe, like there is other complementary stuff, but it's just like, it's not this natural thing where like with Magic Spoon or with a consumable or something like that, it is a little bit more natural. And so I do wonder, like if that brand was losing $29 on acquisition, I would be like, okay, well, we can't lose that much because we won't make that up maybe ever.
Right.
And there's 3 or 4 years worth of data, like maybe on a 12-month LTV or a 18-month LTV, but it gets a little, there gets to be a little, you know, a little bit of like, unreliability when you're buying against an 18-month customer lifetime value. Like, I think that's a big shot. That's like taking a, you know, it's like pulling up from 40 feet. Like maybe you should just get a better shot, you know?
And you're not the D1 athlete. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that's, John, I think that's a great point. It's also where like the other retention strategies come into play. Obviously for like the microphone company, if they only sell microphones, they're not going to do that if, you know, they lose money every time they sell a new microphone.
Well, I suppose my question is there a certain sample? Is that specifically looking at certain kinds of brands like consumables or things like that? Or is that like all e-commerce brands across all Shopify?
Yeah, I think it was the average across all Shopify. It might have even been the average across all e-commerce. But
whoever answered the survey type of thing.
Yeah, like I know what the newsletter was because I get it. It's like e-commerce. I'll find it and send it after in case you anything in the show.
No, like we got into this thing where we're like talking. We're on a podcast right now, so we should probably keep the conversation going.
But I think that like that's where, you know, I said earlier, like the Malomo piece is just the tracking side. It's from the time that you order to the time that it arrives at your door, and like there's a leaky bucket there that we close, of course. But then there's all this other stuff that happens post-purchase. And the one that comes to mind, which everybody's super familiar with, is like a subscription model or figuring out some sort of membership program that keeps customers coming back and buying again so that you make up that lost that lost revenue in LTV or in acquisition. And what I find really interesting, and it kind of goes to like, the microphone company, is one of the agencies we work really closely with is Electric Marketing, Brandon Amoroso. He's kind of made a name for himself in the space.
Is that what partnerships mean, that you work with like agencies? And yeah, great.
Yeah, I think that's actually how we got connected, because I thought you were still at Structured, and I was like, hey, we should talk.
And I'm like, I'm not at Structured anymore.
Yeah. We should still talk though. And it worked out.
Yeah.
But we were chatting the other day. I think we were in Vegas, and he's like, dude, like every single brand could figure out a subscription model. And I think that brands are getting really, especially like in the Shopify ecosystem, are getting really creative about like the kinds of subscriptions that they offer. One of the companies he works with like sells outdoor, I think it's pools. It might be like cold plunges or something like that. Right. And they figured out a subscription model for like cleaning the water in the pool. And that's not crazy, but like if you were only focused on building pools, like you wouldn't think about that naturally. But it's because we're so top heavy on acquisition costs that brands like pretty much have to figure out a way to bring in additional purchases beyond the first, and recurring revenue is obviously like the holy grail. So I think we're going to see a lot more brands get like super creative, probably do some like weird stuff that doesn't work too, on figuring out a subscription model.
No, it's a good point. And we had a conversation earlier that where we didn't necessarily talk about subscription model, because I do tend to disagree. And this is, I'll actually cite someone else, Nick Sharma, who's pretty well known in the e-commerce space. He gave a talk at a Geek Out event. I think currently now they're called GeekX, but he gave a talk at a Geek Out event where he talked about like every brand is chasing the holy grail of subscription. Like they all want subscription. And he talked about like there's lean in subscriptions. That's like Netflix, where you're leaning in, right? Like you're like, what's going on? What's happening?
Sure.
Then there's convenient subscriptions where it's like, just ship this thing that I use all the time. Just ship it to me. Like that's like auto shipping your groceries on Amazon that you buy all the time or whatever. But like there are lots of things that like don't actually fit in that like they really like. He's like specifically like it's been shown time and time again that clothing subscriptions are really short runs, right? Like people on average stay on 3 months because they just don't need that many new clothes, right? And so, I mean, if you maybe decrease the frequency, then they would, and it was quarterly, like maybe they'd stay on longer. But yeah, I mean, then you're talking about 3 quarters in order to hit that same 3-month LTV. So it would really slow down your unit economics. So I do tend to disagree a little bit and say there are certain products that just don't lend themselves to some kind of subscription. That said, I do think there's some creative ways to extract ongoing value out of customers. An example I call out a lot is CrossNet, which is, kind of like a backyard game. I mean, replace with anything, right? Like replace with cornhole if you want. A big way you can extract value out of customers is to get them using it and posting it on Instagram, because then they essentially you're kind of creating a lot of buzz around your product that was like you only had to acquire one customer, and that might turn into 2 or 3 other customers with people who use it with them or whatever. So I think there's other ways to extract value. I also think brands will start to get creative with launching accompanying info products. So info products or digital products that accompany their physical product, or even like media properties on the back, right? So a brand might launch a podcast and start actually monetizing the podcast because they're bringing in customers, hopefully at break even if they can extract a lot of lifetime value,
right?
And then then it's like, all right, well, we've already have the mechanism for bringing the eyeballs to us. Why don't we just launch something to retain the eyeballs? So yeah, I mean, that's kind of like my thought process on it, that there's a lot of ways that brands will start to get creative. But yeah, I mean, outside of one question I have for you is, outside of, what people are doing with the post-purchase experience, and I do think that's super important, right? But like outside of what people are doing with the post-purchase experience, because all the brands that you're working with and have visibility into, they're using Malomo, they're probably doing a pretty good job on post-purchase. There are some brands that are almost like they almost get like cult like, like people just love them. And it was like, I mean, they're like the dream to work with. They'll drop a new product and people will just buy it just because it's a product they dropped. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They'll have like whole Facebook groups dedicated to them. And there's another signal that's a holy grail when people start reselling your products. So like you have a limited inventory runs of things, and then there's a resale value of it where it's going for more on eBay. That wallet company, they do that with certain wallets and bags and stuff like that. And we realized recently, like, oh, there's a little resale market here. That's great. That's a holy grail, because then you'll get people buying like 12 or 15, 20 items on a drop,
That's how we know we'll have made it as a podcast. If people start clipping our content and like reacting to it, we'll be like, oh wow, there's some resellability of this content. Sorry.
Or when like you see all the biggest podcasts have like knockoff channels clipping them, you know what I'm saying? Like channels they don't even own.
Joe Rogan like experience, like what's spelled with an A or something.
Right. Yeah, when there's modern commerce or something like that. Modern Kermis.
We've reached the top of the mountain at that point.
That's when we've made it. But brands that have that kind of following, that kind of like cult, like what are they doing? Like how is that happening?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I'm trying to think of a couple brands that we work with. I actually think, and I just heard him, he was on Nick's podcast actually, the True Classic Tees guy. Like they what they've done like revenue wise is just absolutely absurd. I learned a lot from that podcast in terms of like how successful they've been. And they do seem like a brand, even amongst like people that I know, my friends, that like when they drop new clothes, like my buddies, Cuts is actually very similar. Like when Cuts has like product releases, especially guys, I think they have women's line now, but especially my guy friends, like buy the stuff like when it comes out. And
Built is another one.
Yep. Built is actually an example we use a lot in showing like the experience that we provide. So those are some clothing brands. I think that there are some food and beverage companies we work with, like Mudwater and Magic Spoon, who when they have new product releases, Olipop is another one on the soda side when they have new releases. And I know it's such a generic answer, but most of them have built community in some way. Like they're not just a brand selling soda. They're like a brand where people can come and interact with like other like-minded people who also like their soda. And I think the biggest like advantage that provides outside of retention, maybe just as importantly, and it's something you alluded to earlier, John, about like basically affiliate marketing. You've made it when other people are sharing it and getting other people to buy. Like that retention to acquisition flywheel is like the holy grail of retention, because not only are you keeping those customers, right? Like you're literally growing through them, not just from a revenue standpoint, from a new revenue standpoint. One example of that is in the post-purchase, if you're a subscriber, like we won't promote the subscription program on your order tracking page, but we'll definitely promote your refer a friend program, because you think about it, like you're a loyal fan of this brand, you're a subscriber, you have something on the way to your house. You're probably most excited about your brand as you've ever been. Like, let's put that refer a friend program front and center on that tracking page so that you can easily earn money for sending referrals out. And that's been a really effective strategy of like turning retention into acquisition, specifically on the post-purchase. But I think what you talked about earlier goes hand in hand with the whole idea of community, where, friends are bringing their friends in, not just for the brand itself, but because they're offering something beyond that.
I think, I've had a few conversations on the podcast recently that have changed my mind about this a little bit. I have always, when it comes to e-commerce, I've always been a very direct response person. I'm just a direct response marketer in general. But I've had some conversations on the podcast recently, as well as like turning to being a little bit more in-house at a couple brands, as well as growing these the podcast and the other things that we're growing, the other podcast basically that we're growing. unrelated to this one.
Right.
It's made me buy into the idea of brand a little bit more, not brand in the way that, you know, a lay person might think about it, where it's like, oh, it's the colors and the font. And like, that's not what I mean when I say brand. I mean community, you know, and I mean, like when I say something to you, I don't know if you're too young for this, Noah, but when I say like, you know, yeah, that guy's like the kind of guy who'd wear an Affliction t-shirt, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Instantly know what I'm
Tom
talking
Hardy? Come on, man. Tom Hardy? Jeez.
little Tom Hardy tee, yeah, or whatever, right? Like it's like, what do people say about the people who are into your brand? You know
Sure.
what I mean? Like, what kind of people are those? Like, oh yeah, that's like a kind of person who'd eat Magic Spoon. You know what I mean? And then like the people who are like, yeah, I vibe with that. You know, like that's how I want people to describe me. And that's about way more than eating cereal as an adult. You know what I mean? That's about way more than wearing a t-shirt that looks good on you. That's about like in many cases you'll see things like brands that aren't inherently political kind of attract a certain kind of political, like, because it's like these are just like-minded people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like it's just, there's nothing inherently anything about this brand. It's just the kind of people that we bring together and attract. Like it creates this sort of life of its own, and it's a certain kind of people. And if you're not that kind of person, you could still use the product and enjoy it, but you won't end up being this community member. And there's probably still LTV to be extracted out of those people. I think a lot of brands are afraid of that, right? Because they're like, oh, we don't want to alienate anybody. But I'm like, well, when you alienate some people, you really not indoctrinate others. And I think those are the most powerful brands that have just a group of people indoctrinated. And that's what we're seeing with like even the podcast and stuff like that. Like people get really baked and it's like they're just in on anything you do, anything you release, anything you promote, they're in on it. And I think that's how some of these brands get. There's another thing you just said, and this ties into brand a little bit too. All those brands that you held up as an example, think about what they look and feel like on the way in. You know what I mean? Like True Classic makes you laugh on the way in. So I think a lot of dudes vibe with it because it's like, yeah, they made me laugh to start with. Like before they even sold me anything, they made me laugh,
like,
right?
You got value out of this brand before you bought anything. Like it before you bought, or you maybe even laugh before you got to their site. Like you got value out of, like, that's something I think about in my job as partnerships. Like, how can I bring value to our partners before we even work together? Right. And I think that's a great point, John. I honestly haven't thought about that from a merchant perspective, but I love it.
Well, I mean, you're really focused on the retention side, but all of it, like Olipop, there's definitely a vibe to their ads. And I'll be the first to advise you, if you're a DTC brand out there thinking I would love our ads to look like Olipop, just stop. Like they probably won't convert as good as you need them to. I don't know how they're doing for Olipop, but Olipop is a big brand at this point, so they can run that kind of ad. Like, I think it's like all the way in, we're trying to bring in baked customers. You know what I mean? Yes. If they needed to acquire at better unit economics, they would have to do more like UGC, more of those gritty type of ads. But yeah, I mean, all those brands that you on the way in, you're already a certain type of customer. That's a theory. That's a working theory. Now, don't everybody go out there and start creating super branded ads or spend, $50,000 on a Harmon Brothers style video or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's just a working theory that it's like, oh, they already were kind of bought in, on first purchase, and they're already part of the community.
Yeah. And I think another, like, what also feeds that is just like the social media age that we live in. And, to your point earlier about a certain kind of people, I think that because like people, like in my age group, like I'm 30 years old, people still my age are like posting the kind of like their favorite cereal. Like people will post on their story, this cereal's so good, just because it's like, it's good cereal that they like. Yeah. And if I like that person, I'm going to have a bigger affinity to try that cereal than if our values align, right? Not even if I like them personally, but if our values or know them personally, but if our values align, like I'll probably be more inclined to try that cereal than I would be otherwise. And I think that's where like the whole idea of like community comes into play and brand comes into play, because without any focus on that, like you're missing out on opportunities for sure. There's no question about it.
Cool. I want to move into a little segment. We have a few recurring segments and games that we play. We'll do a segment called 3 Tips. This is actually the first time we're doing this one, but we talked about it earlier, so
it should be flawless by this point.
It should be flawless. Yeah, we're dialed. We'll give you a second to think about it though. So it's going to be 3 tips for building community as a brand, and they're going to just be actionable tips, and we will get to those right after this sponsor. What's up, everybody? Today's episode is brought to you by ModCom. It's a super slick in-cart upsell app. So if I want to buy these New Balance trainers I'm trying to get in shape, I add them to my cart. My cart opens up and it says, hey, look, you're only $5 away from free shipping. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'll add this to my cart since you recommended it. And now I got my free shipping. But hold up, I'm only $38 away from a free gift. So why don't I add a pair of size 8 New Balance trainers to my cart for my girlfriend? She's got bigger feet than me. And now look at this. It actually automatically added that free gift straight to my cart for me. That will all be there when I check out. Super nifty app, super slick, super quick way to increase your AOV. Go to monkcommerce.com. Try it free on your store for 7 days. All right, we're back. Catching you on the backside of a drink of water or something else. I don't know. Whatever it was.
Hopefully this is water.
It was water, yeah. Well, whatever that was, they didn't pay for an ad spot, so don't tell us what it was. So let's get into this. So 3 tips for building community if you're a brand. I have 2. Do you got 1 or 2? So whoever's got 2 will go first. Or Casey, do you have 1?
You can have my spot, John. I'll donate it to you.
All right. If you have 2, go ahead. I'll just make sure that mine don't overlap because I have 2 too.
Maybe it'll be let's play 4 tips. Let's play 4 tips.
Let's get crazy here.
Hey,
you know what? If you guys are both going to put up 2, I'll put 1 into the pot. Let's make a nice round 5.
Hey, 5 tips.
We're doing 5
Let's do
tips.
this.
We're playing 5 tips. This is the first time 5 tips has ever been played. All right, I'll go first then. My first tip is focus on a channel and hire a social and community manager there. Even if you just are hiring someone part-time or internship, I will say one of the biggest breakthroughs that this wallet brand had was when they hired someone, and it was a big risk for them. They hired this social media person, and she's kind of actually one of the more experienced people, and she absolutely blew up their Instagram. And she also created this cult group of people who always are seeing their stories on Instagram, always are seeing their posts, know who she is, will ask, when she's on vacation, they'll be like, where is Casey at? I don't know where she went. They know what's going on at Ondar as the brand. And so hiring somebody to actually just do that job of just pick a channel, right? Yep. Obvi is a great example of they've got a big pop in Facebook group. But pick a channel and be like, hey, focus in on that channel. So that way we know where to send everybody. Yeah. Right. All those people we've acquired, all those emails, we're whatever. We know where to send everybody. And Instagram's a good one for it, especially if you're running a lot of meta ads. So that's tip number 1. Noah, to you for tip number 2.
Okay. I'm going to, both of mine are kind of related to what you just said.
Okay. Well.
I'm going to go with, a theme that we talked about earlier, bring value outside of product. So for us at Malomo, and I know this is really popular for some brands, Feastables is a great example. They have a podcast that gets, I don't know what their viewership is. I know it's really popular. Just like us at Malomo, we have a pretty popular podcast. You guys have a popular podcast. We're bringing value to our customers, to the people that we want to serve, to like-minded people that care about what we're talking about and the problems that we solve before they buy anything. Maybe even before they have an inclination of what Malomo does or what Feastable sells. We're bringing them in, talking about things that they obviously care about. Maybe they were referred by a friend, and that's where the community aspect starts to come in. So I'd think about ways in which you can bring value outside of what you're selling on a day-to-day basis.
Nice.
All right, I'll follow that up. Just like you said, Noah, you actually kind of got into the one I was going to get into, so I'm audibling here a little bit. But I'm going to go with something still kind of similar. I learned this from our other podcast. We've built a lot of that community, giving value up front with giveaways in particular. And one of the things that I found with that is that kind of making an internal language, kind of inside jokes with your customers or the people interacting with you, that goes so far. I mean, you get that at face value, but the effect is even greater than you would think. I remember just one person who happened to win one of our giveaways was named Rose B, or is named Rose B still. She hasn't changed her name or anything yet. She just won a giveaway in the past. But I made a stupid little joke just saying roast beef. It sounds like Rose B, roast beef. And every single time that she's on one of our shows live, she drops, hey, it's roast beef. And anybody who's ever been there at the original time or anytime since laughs at that, that ha ha, Rose, super funny. Now Rose is some prankster in our community that we have.
She's like a little mini celebrity in Triple Cross.
Yeah.
So create inside jokes. I like it.
Exactly. Any internal language, I think it doesn't have to be humor, but any internal language that gets that oven that bakes your community super hot, and it'll bake people even quicker.
All right, I'm gonna keep it rolling. Tip number 4 I've got is have a human face. A lot of founders had created an e-commerce brand because they didn't want to build a personal brand, and that's fine. But there's got to be some kind of human face, and here's a couple tactical examples. We took over the email at one point. We took over the email marketing for a brand called Diesel Power Gear. Really big brand at one point. I think they've kind of shut down their e-commerce side now because they were giving away these trucks and they didn't want to give away the trucks anymore. But like they had a show on the Discovery Channel and everything, and they used to send these emails that were like from Diesel Power Gear, right? And they were like these HTML emails. We started sending more of a mix of plain text and HTML emails, and we started sending them from Diesel Dave, and they were written in like Diesel Dave voice, right? And some of them were just copy, and they were just Diesel Dave talking to him. It's just like an email from your buddy, right? So that's like one way to like put a face with it, and people already knew the face because he's on TV, like actual Discovery Channel TV. But the same thing I said earlier, like have a person who is on the Instagram who's like showing who they are, that they're a person. I'm a person who works here at this company, right? Or I work here at my house. We're all remote, right? Like give your brand an actual human personality, and like, whether it's via a podcast or a YouTube channel or on Instagram or in your emails, just across the board, really. It can even be multiple human personalities, right? It's okay for people to know that more than one person work at the company. But people just relate to humans a lot more than they relate to brand name, right? Like they don't know who that is.
Right. I love that one. I love the example too of like plain text emails being more effective, because I think that people spend a ton of time focused on email creative, and it might not even be like just not only
an email from their buddy Diesel Dave and they'll buy that stuff.
I mean, I would respond to Diesel Dave.
He's a cool guy.
Get on this list.
Feels like your buddy, So.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, last one. We also talked about this, but I would say have a loyalty program. And the reason for that is like it's hard to incentivize like behavior outside or an affiliate program, but like some way to bring value to your true fans that makes it really easy for them to get other people into the community. So this one's more about like building and growing the community. But once you have customers, make it really easy for them to invite their friends. And if you can incentivize them to do that as well, all the better. And I think that I don't have any stats off the top of my head, but I would imagine that goes a long way in building community as well.
I think, and I'll echo that, and I'll add one little piece and say like, and make it really easy, right? And I'm not like, of course they get their affiliate link, they do all that, but like when they're having a conversation with a friend, and the friend is like, hey, you look good, like what have you been doing to lose weight? And it's like, well, like I've changed my diet up a little bit, I eat these things, right? Like make it really easy for them to be like, oh yeah, just go like they sent me a promo code. It's just my name. If you use the promo code then you get 20% off. Right.
Yep.
Or not that, whatever it is, right? Whatever's going to be natural to them. I would actually survey your customers and say, hey, what would make it easier for you? Right. Especially if you've done these other things to build community, they'll tell you exactly how to make it easier for them to like, hey, that's a super cool wallet. Where did you get it? Oh, I got it, here. Like maybe you make them their own little vanity URL. Like I got it at johndar.com instead of ondar.com.
Ooh, I like that.
That's my new nickname, John Dar.
It's cool. Sounds very Star Warsy, which I know is a universe you're a fan of.
Andor is a I mean, I know why you went. I know why.
He almost went down a rabbit hole. All right.
It's also on theme with the podcast ModCom. So
yeah,
we're just abbreviating the first two names. It's fine.
It's good, for sure. Good point. Sure. All right, I have one burning question for you, Noah. I'm kind of the background producer a lot of times, especially early on in the show. I'm kind of just hanging out, not talking a ton, making sure things are going smooth behind the scenes. But whenever I have a really important question, I just have to ask it. Talking about Malomo, let's back up here. Talking about Malomo, I think it's a really important thing. You've kind of hijacked the transactional nature of e-commerce buying and really put that kind of back in the hands of the marketers and to some degree to make some revenue out of it. My burning question is this: is the Malomo logo a butterfly, and is that some kind of metaphor about like a metamorphosis of your business and sprouting wings and soaring to new heights, or is it just a blob? I don't like.
If it's not, dude, that was a great pitch. You should just say that's what it is. If it's not that,
yeah, it's it's in the eye of the beholder, I think. But,
okay, all right, very political answer you just gave.
I think Malomo is actually a type of butterfly. This is a butterfly, representation of a butterfly. But I haven't gotten this question for a while. Yao's, our CEO's mom, had a soap business. She passed away from cancer while he was building Malomo, I think, like early days. But before they had a name for it. So he like dedicated it to his mom, but also to play on like a beautiful experience sort of thing.
Yeah, butterfly, fly, beautiful.
Okay. All right. Hey, you turned what could have been a really sad answer into just a really nice, beautiful answer. I really appreciate that. Okay, one more quick one, just because that went pretty quick. We talked a lot about cereal. I got to know, how much milk do you put in your cereal?
Ooh.
Are you like way above, like milk to the top? Do you go like kind of milk just like middle, or like I don't even want to see the milk; it stays below the cereal?
I would basically eating it dry. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, where you at?
Same.
You're basically eating dry cereal.
Eat it like tiny little bit. I very rarely eat cereal, but I have a weirder. Well, Casey, actually, where are you at first before I ask my question?
Fair enough. We'll go around the horn a little. Yeah, I think I'm medium, but my weirdness is like I'll let it sit for a minute. I don't I don't need insane crunchiness. Like Captain Crunch or something that will destroy your mouth. You got to let cereal like. You got to give it a hot second, give it a nice 60-second, let it sit. I like it not soggy, but a little softer than out of the box.
Yeah, that's
John. Let's give you a second to.
I would like a little bit of cereal with my milk.
Yes,
I'm like one of those grown men who will drink just milk. Like, but really, it always chases something. I won't just go to the fridge and get milk. It's like if I had something with peanut butter or chocolate or something like that. It's disproportionate. I'll eat like 2 M&Ms and then drink like 16 ounces of milk just down the hatch. So yeah, that's pretty much how I roll with cereal. It's like a little bit of cereal, mostly milk, and then I eat the 2 bites of cereal and then just drain the whole bowl of milk. Some people say you can't trust a person like me, and
I was just gonna say,
it's valid.
You just said that you're a grown man who drinks milk. Thank God you're not a cat guy, because
man, I mean, it would be fair. I don't think I want to be friends with you anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, but I heard another cereal related question that I didn't even know was a question on a podcast yesterday. I think I know the answer, but I'm just flabbergasted by the question. Do you pour the cereal in first or the milk?
Okay. All right. First of all, if we have different answers on this, somebody's not an American. All right. Which is fine. But like, it's just, there's a way to do things and then there's a way not to do things. And I am firmly in the camp of you better be pouring your cereal in. Okay. Kind of otherwise, you're just asking for like pouring milk into an empty bowl. That's playing with fire.
Right. Before you even dump the cereal in, which is going to go everywhere.
Especially if you have like we buy milk by the gallon whenever we buy it, and if you like if you crack that seal, I mean, good luck finding that sweet spot. It just it's everywhere. So you got to go for your own good. You got to go cereal first. That's my opinion on it. Who wants? Are you in that? Next?
Yeah, I'm good. I will agree with that. I have heard people say that they'll put the milk in and then they just put like a little bit of cereal in at a time and eat it because they like it really crunchy. But I still think they're a crazy person.
Interesting.
Because I'm like, well, then your milk never gets the cereal in it. Like you never, like if you were eating, Fruit Loops, you never get Fruit Loop milk if you do it that way, which is just, it's a bummer.
That's like the extreme end of the crunchy cereal community that you're a part of, John.
Yeah, they're hardcore. Like no, I put the cereal in first. You put the cereal in first, Noah?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, good. There's only one right answer then.
Yeah.
I feel bad. Maybe somebody was going to answer a different way, and then I made them feel weird about that. So that, of course I put the cereal in. So
that's also the cat person who drinks milk raw with nothing.
Yeah. I would give my cat some milk, and I drink some milk myself.
Yeah, bathing cats with their tongues, like cats do.
My human tongue.
All right, I think we've officially beaten that horse in the afterlife.
I like how you said you buy milk by the gallon. I'm like, I buy milk by the multiple gallons.
I'm just saying it's easier to do the pour if you got one of the little like carton guys, sure. But with that those gallons are monsters, man.
Yeah, no, you got to be strong. I remember when I was a kid and you just like lean it over into there and you're like, I hope it doesn't spill.
You ever do the thing where you put the lip onto the lip of the cup and then inevitably you end up knocking the cup down because you put way too much pressure on that? Nobody understands gravity when you're like 8 years old. That happens to everybody.
Yep. Yeah, my kids are getting that age now.
Yeah, oh yeah.
All right. Well, that was a fun little sidetrack. Should we move into the parting shot?
I believe we should, John. Tee him up.
Right. Noah, if you've listened to some episodes before all the way through, then you'll know at the end we do a parting shot. The parting shot is like the TLDR. It's like the soundbite, the clip, the thing that like, hey, if you take something out of this episode, I mean, this one was a weird one. If you take something out of this episode, if you really kind of like take something away and learn something, it's this. I'll give you a whack at it, and then if you don't do it, you'll know if you don't do a good job because then I'll jump in and do it.
Okay.
So no pressure.
Wow. Nice.
I know what it is. No data behind this. I could go into that. If you listen to the rest of the episode, you'll hear it. But simply put, don't acquire customers if you don't have a plan to keep them coming back.
That was it. Yeah.
Short.
I don't need
sweet.
I don't need to do another one. Also, if you drink milk and you're grown, you're untrustworthy.
You're not coming on this podcast.
You didn't have to watch this podcast to know that.
Come on the podcast and defend yourself, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be on your side if you're a milk drinker, but not if you're a cat person.
The ModCom Milk Challenge. Take all challengers. All right, Modern Commerce. Thank you for joining us today. Noah, thank you for being our guest. We had a wonderful time. John, thanks for leading this interview. Guys, if you enjoyed this interview with Noah, if you enjoy our podcast, make sure you drop a like down below on the video. Also, remember to subscribe to our channel. That helps us out a ton. If you are listening after the fact on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, anything like that, make sure to rate and review us. John, did I miss anything? Is that all of it?
You got the rate and review stuff. That's usually my line, so I think you got it all, dude.
All right, Modern Commerce. We will see you next time. Noah, thanks again.
Thanks,
everybody.
fellas.